Such a good idea to try to spin the entire broadcast. Well, it's the first time you're ever seeing me. I'm Chef AJ. I'm the creator of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, and welcome to episode 65 of Weight Loss Wednesday, filmed before a live studio audience. Hello, live studio audience.
Hi, AJ.
So inspired by Dr. Greger, who I interviewed on my other show, which if you're not familiar with, you can watch on YouTube if you follow me under Chef AJ. It's called Healthy Living Live. If you're watching me on YouTube, you may not realize that this is a live broadcast I do every Wednesday, or almost every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And then I upload it to YouTube within 24 hours. So when you're watching it on YouTube and you complain that you can't see or can't hear, you have to understand that we use a technology called Facebook Live. It's free and we have no control over whether it works or not. It has nothing to do with the internet. We have the best high-speed internet, but sometimes it's just the way it is on Facebook, and there's no number to call and complain for this free service. So we do the best we can. And people say, well, tell them to hold the camera or focus the camera. There is no camera. It's shot through an iPhone. All right. So before we get started, if you didn't see my live show today with Mark Huberman, the president of the NHA, you might want to watch that. It's on YouTube. There's this great magazine called Health Science Magazine. And Shada, who's lost almost 120 pounds on the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, is featured in this month's success story. I'm actually next month. So you can buy the magazine for $3 plus postage, but why not support this wonderful organization called the NHA?
Which stands for?
National Health Association, $35 a year. They're actually having a conference on June 29th to July 1st. I was asked to speak, but I was already spoken for. I'll be there next year. But you got Dr. Goldhamer and Furman and Dr. Esser and Dr. Lim and Dr. Pam Popper. It's going to be amazing, and Kathy Fisher. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm Chef AJ. I can't read your comments because I can't see, but Kenny's here, and if you say anything that you need answered, Kenny's going to write it down. But we're going to do a little bit differently today because I'm going to do a tribute to my mentor, Dr. Alan Goldhamer. Can I have that thing, Kenny? And I'm going to attempt to spin. That's Dr. Goldhamer. I'm going to attempt to spin the entire time of the broadcast. I'm at an intensity of 11. And I've already spun yesterday. I usually spin every other day. This is my new Kaiser spin bike that Charles got me for my birthday, which is next month. Usually when I spin standing the whole time. So I've never actually sat this long. So we'll see what happens. All righty. So as I said, I'm the creator of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. And I do this as a weekly broadcast to answer your questions about healthy, permanent, and sustainable weight loss. You're certainly welcome to post a question as this broadcast goes live, and also feel free to please share it. It's very easy to do. There's a share button. However, the absolute best way to submit a question is through my website, which is www.eatunprocessed.com. And while you're there, why not sign up to be on my mailing list so you don't miss anything important, like discounts to the Vegas conference, things like that. And also you get a bunch of cool free recipes. We just added some. If you have AOL, a lot of times it'll go to spam and there's nothing we can do. So get a Gmail account. It's the best anyway, and sign up through that if you're not getting my emails. We send stuff out, I don't know, weekly or so about summits and things like that. We don't really try to sell you stuff. The only thing we really sell is the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. And so we're not like salesy. We just like to give recipes and tell you about summits and things like that. So also realize that when you post your questions live, the way Facebook Live works, it only allows us to see about one line and maybe part of the second. So if it's a long question, I can answer it after the broadcast, but we can't see it. Kenny can't read it. None of us can. So
it's only on Facebook Live, but we're not on Facebook Live, so it's different.
Yeah. Well, but so you're seeing the whole thing now, huh?
I can see no one's writing long.
We're actually on Be Live today, a service I pay for. I don't know if you noticed, but right there is a painting I did of Bailey.
Can't see it.
They can't see it.
Well, maybe they can't see it. They can see that. Yeah, they can see that.
Okay, and then there's another painting I did of Bailey. So, all right, let's get started. So today what I'd like to talk about are the 10 most important things I've learned from my mentor, Dr. Alan Goldhamer. And I was talking to him on video yesterday because I'm going to be interviewing him live. Mark your calendars, March 14th at 11 a.m., an hour earlier than usual for my live broadcasts. And I said, hey, what if we talk about the 10 most important things I learned from you? And he said, well, you can talk about whatever you want. Oh, Nikki's on. Nikki, I'm wearing the shirt Nikki gave me. Thank you so much. And why don't you get Dr. Lyle? Maybe Dr. Lyle wants to watch too.
Why don't you tell us about what's on your head?
Oh, so this is just a sweatband in case I sweat. It says vegan since 1977, which I thought 41 years was a tremendous accomplishment until I interviewed Mark Huberman today, who's been vegan for 67 years. So he definitely has me beat. So anyway, I asked Dr. Goldhamer if we could talk about the 10 most important things I learned from him.
Yes, you can.
He said I could talk about whatever I wanted, but he had some important things he wanted to talk about. I said, you know what? I'll just do a little tribute to you today about the 10 most important things I learned from you. So here they go in no particular order. The 10 most important things I learned from Dr. Alan Goldhamer. So the first thing, and by the way, if you don't know who he is, I mean, you got to know. He's the co-founder of the Truenorth Health Center in Santa Rosa, California, along with his wife, Dr. Jennifer Morano. It's been there for over 30 years. I believe they've seen something like more than 30,000 patients and fasted over 10,000 patients. It's one of the only medically supervised therapeutic water-only fasting centers in the United States. It's in Santa Rosa. There are 2 others, one in Florida, Frank Sabatino, one in Ohio, Gracie Yoon, but I don't believe they've been around that long or as big. And they have medical doctors there, and they're just awesome in every way. And everything I learned, I pretty much learned in Santa Rosa, either from Dr. Goldhamer, Dr. Lyle, or Dr. McDougall. 3 men that I call the Holy Trinity, as opposed to the evil Trinity, which is sugar, oil, and salt. So I went there as a patient in January of 2011, and I was 50 pounds heavier than I am now, but I wasn't going there for weight loss. I mean, of course, I wanted to lose weight, but that's not why I was going there. I had read the book, The Pleasure Trap, and I heard about the center. And by the way, if you want a free consult to see if Truenorth is right for you, Dr. Alan Goldhamer generously gives you one if you fill out the patient intake form at www.healthpromoting.com. He needs to have your health history in order to talk to you. And I did that in actually 2010. And I went there for 8 days with my good friend Tim on Martin Luther King Jr. weekend on January 2011. And I went there with the intention of fasting, not because I was a food addict or overweight. I didn't even really know for sure. Didn't even know I was a food addict back then. But the reason I went there is because I was on psychiatric medications given to me after one of my babies died. And I wanted to get off them for many reasons, not just because of the side effects, but I felt very, and they don't really work, by the way. And if you think that psych medicines work, then please read or listen to Anatomy of an Epidemic by Robert Whitaker, and you'll realize they don't work. The efficacy is very, very low, except in rare circumstances. You'll learn things in the book, like, for example, when Prozac came out, they didn't tell you that in trials that a placebo is actually more effective. And so they basically do more harm than good. And this is a great book. And they're addictive. That's the other thing. Like, they tell you, oh, no, they're not addictive. Well, I couldn't get off of them. So I called Dr. Goldhamer, said, oh, yeah, we're going to fast you and, all this kind of stuff. But then what happened is when you get to Truenorth, you see a medical doctor. In my case, Dr. Peter Sultana, who's awesome. And if you ever go there, well, they're all great, by the way, but I'm very fortunate to get him. He's been there since the center opened. He said, we can't fast her because they didn't know enough about the psych medicines and whether you can't really fast on them. I was on one called Lexapro, and I had tried unsuccessfully many times to go off them. I had seen the best doctors for that and then flown all over the United States, and I could get my dose down from 10 milligrams to 5 milligrams, and then get it down to, I don't know why my nose is running all of a sudden, to 2.5 milligrams. And then the minute I tried to lower it after 2.5, I started having panic attacks. So Dr. Goldhamer said to come to the center. So I came to the center and found out they couldn't water fast me. I did do a juice fast, which I'm told is actually more difficult than a water fast because when you're getting calories, you actually have hunger. Whereas water fasting, everybody that's water fasted, oh, Kenny's so nice, he got me a tissue. Don't complain that I blew my nose. I'm not cooking. It's so funny how people, Kenny, they've complained so much on these broadcasts about that I picked up Bailey and then I cook. I mean, I'm eating it. What do you care if I pick up Bailey and cook? You're not coming to my restaurant. Anyway, so that was that. And I learned so much there from Dr. Goldhamer and his wife, Dr. Morano, who lectured, and of course, Dr. Lyle and all the other wonderful speakers. Dr. Clapper was working there at the time. And it changed my life forever. And that's how it all started. So some of the most important things I learned from Dr. Goldhamer is, number one, good health is the result of healthful living. And he says that a lot. And Mark Huberman said today that that's sort of one of the slogans of the National Health Association. But good health is a result of healthful living. And I take that into my work, which is in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, where I'm trying to get people not only healthy, but slender, because it's they're related, by the way. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that believe that health can come in every size. And I'm not saying that people have to be skinny or anorexic, but a lot of the doctors I've interviewed, some of them plant-based, said you can't be fat and healthy. So maybe you could be less sick if you're eating a particular diet, but they definitely are related. You know, at least that's what people like Dr. Montgomery said. His endorsement of my book is one of the ones that made the cover, and he talked about obesity and disease. So good health is a result of healthful living. But in addition, weight loss is a result of healthful living. And so a lot of people come to the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, probably more than others. And please share, guys. It really helps me out to lose weight, but not to gain health. And I was floored to find out how many people that are currently in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program smoke cigarettes, for example. Well, if you're smoking cigarettes, it doesn't really matter what you eat because you're killing yourself, and it's probably, the worst thing you could do, just about, on purpose to yourself. And so if somebody is still smoking cigarettes and then joining a weight loss program, it's pretty obvious that they don't really care about their health, because if they did, they would quit smoking first. Many people come drinking alcohol, and I don't mean an occasional glass of champagne once a year at a wedding, but daily, like alcoholics, for example. And once again, if your goal was health, which is a result of healthful living, you wouldn't be joining a weight loss program while you were smoking and drinking alcohol. Now, there's other addictions like caffeine, which of course, that those are all addictions are hard to break, by the way, but I can work with somebody that's addicted to coffee and sugar and oil and salt. That's what my specialty is. And even though I was a smoker who quit over 30 years ago, to help somebody quit smoking, that's not my area of expertise. There's many wonderful methods. A lot of people recommend Alan Carr's method. But the point is if you want good health, then you have to live healthfully. And if you're smoking, you're not living healthfully. So let's take care of that first. If you're drinking, I would argue that we shouldn't be drinking alcohol at all. The World Health Organization issued a statement saying they could no longer recommend any amount of alcohol as safe. It's linked to every cancer. Even Mark Huberman said today that once when he walked his daughter down the aisle, he did a toast and had 2 sips of champagne. I'm not talking about that kind of consumption, but if you have to have a half a bottle of wine every night just to go to sleep or function, then maybe that's something you want to look at before you even consider what needs to be done for ultimate weight loss. So good health is a result of healthful living. Dr. Goldhamer mentioned specifically diet, sleep, and exercise. My specialty is in the dietary area because I know what the diet is that they've taught and served at Truenorth for over 30 years. I have followed it for 10 years, but perfectly for 7 years. And I know how to make the recipes within those dietary constraints taste delicious to most people, as most of my recipes are tested on regular people. I have a partner in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program named John Pierre, who's a frequent guest host on this show. He handles the exercise part, but apparently I'm handling it today because I'm attempting to spin the entire time. It's not easy talking and spinning, Kenny. You know that? Because in spin class, we don't have to do it. I'm only at an intensity at 11, which is pretty low. This bike goes from 1 to 21. And I don't even start at 11 when I spin. I go from 13 to 21. But anyway, so and as far as sleep, I'm not an expert in sleep. I sleep really well. But I think, again, when you have good habits and you're not using coffee to wake you up and alcohol to put you to sleep, you sleep pretty well. But if you're eating right and you're exercising, when your head hits the pillow, you're not going to need a pill called Ambien to go to sleep. We don't have Ambien deficiencies in this country, but we sure have exercise deficiency. And if you do 90 minutes on a spin bike like I do every other day, you're going to be tired when it's time to go to bed. But if you're eating crap food and smoking cigarettes and doing all that stuff, well, it's going to impair your sleep. And, a cup of coffee in the morning, caffeine has a 17-hour half-life. And as little as 1 cup of coffee in the morning can impair your ability to get deep sleep later in the day. If you want to more about this, listen to the interview I did with vegan sleep specialist, Dr. Artal. But then you'll understand that. But again, good health is a result of healthful living. And weight loss is a result of healthful living. Weight loss is a result of good health. And so if you adopt the dietary lifestyle that Dr. Goldhamer recommends and that I follow, you will be able to attain and achieve, that's the same word, achieve and maintain, your optimal weight. So, number 1, Dr. Goldhamer says good health is a result of healthful living, and AJ will add, and so is weight loss. So get healthy first, guys, because when you get healthy, the weight is a symptom of your body being out of balance and you being in ill health. But when you adopt health-promoting behaviors like diet, sleep, and exercise, you not only get healthy, but your body will find its ideal weight. All right. Yay. Okay. Are people liking this? I can't tell. I can't see.
There's not a lot of questions.
No, it's okay. It's better if there's not questions because I'm kind of giving a lecture today. But in case they are, Kenny's here monitoring.
They're disappearing, actually, so I lost them
People
all.
are disappearing. Wow. The other thing is Nikki said people would rather smoke and drink than be fat. If I could just lose weight, everything would be perfect. And you know what's interesting, Nikki, is the people in the program that are smoking and drinking are some of the heaviest people. So it's not working. It's not even working. One of the reasons Kenny's here is because Heather Goodwin, who lost over 300 pounds in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, has been staying with me in Eden and Shada for the last 10 days, going to Disneyland and Universal. And I had her on the last leg in Sacramento with Tammy and Tom Kramer. And she made me a pizza crust because I didn't get to taste any last week. And I made some barbecue chicken. And, well, not really chicken. And so Kenny has been eating a barbecue chicken pizza. So Eden, if you're watching, we are saving you a piece of that. And so if you want the recipe for that barbecue sauce, it's the best barbecue sauce I've ever had. No dates. I'm going to be teaching it on Sunday's webinar, so please sign up for that. Okay. Number 2, second most important thing I learned for Dr. Ellen Goldhamer is that sugar, oil, and salt, an acronym SOS is what he coined, are not foods. They're chemicals that we add to our foods that fool our brain's satiety mechanisms and cause us to exponentially overeat. And salt, in particular, is a powerful appetite stimulant. Now, Dr. Goldhamer's acronym, SOS, which is also the universal distress signal, which most Americans are in because of their diet. In the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, I added the F and the A, and I call it SOFAs. So, yes, I'm on an SOS-free diet. And by the way, it's SOS-free because a lot of people say I'm on the SOS diet. Well, you don't want to be on that diet, sugar, oil, salt. You want to be on an SOS-free diet. But I like to expand it to be SOFAs-free. SOFAS, sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, salt. Now, Dr. Goldhamer said that the first S, sugar, encompasses both the flour and the alcohol. But after working with so many people in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program who were still eating flour and drinking alcohol, I decided to add the acronym, add FA to the acronym SOFAs, sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, salt, which is nice because it says SOFAs. And if you want to lose weight and get healthy, you need to get off your sofas. So one of the reasons this diet in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program and the Truenorth diet is different than most of the other plant-based programs, many of them are just oil-free, which for a lot of people is enough unless you happen to be overweight or a food addict. But taking out the sugar and the refined carbs like the alcohol and the flour and the salt can really help a lot of people take it to the next level when it comes to their inability to lose weight. Not everybody. There are people that can eat all kinds of crap and be slender. There's people that can drink alcohol and not be alcoholic. But as Dr. Goldhamer says, if you're an alcoholic, it's not you. And if you're eating sugar and oil and flour and salt and you're overweight, then it's probably not you either. As he often says, is if you could have done it, you would have done it, but you can't. Meaning if you could have moderated your use of these foods. Now, the thing is most of us that have followed a plant-based diet, unless we haven't seen Forks Over Knives or read Dr. Esselstyn's book, know that oil is not a health food. It injures the endothelial cells, which is a life jacket of the circulatory system. It's 4,000 calories a pound. It's really high in caloric density. So it's certainly not going to help facilitate weight loss. It's atherogenic, diabetogenic, and obesogenic, meaning it contributes to diabetes, heart disease, and obesity. So it's not really, we don't have to fight, there are junk food vegans that would argue that, yeah, it's okay to have, and that's fine. If you can have anything you want. But if you're a food addict, you're probably not going to get much success if you're including these foods, especially the oil, because it's such a high caloric density. But the problem with the SOS or the SOFAs is they really aren't food. They're chemicals. You don't see sugar in any concentrated form in nature. You don't see maple syrup or agave or liquid stevia. You see fruit in nature, but you don't see sugar in any concentrated form in nature. You don't see oil in any concentrated form in nature. You see fat like olives and avocados and nuts and seeds, but there is no oil. These are all processed foods, which are nutrient poor and calorie rich, and all the fiber and the water and micronutrients and phytochemicals and antioxidants have been removed. Same thing with the flour. You don't see any flour. You see whole grains in nature. There's certainly no alcohol in nature. You have whole barley, but you don't have, the alcohol. Oops, you got to pick that up. That's made from it. And you don't see salt in any concentrated form, So the problem is these are powerful chemicals that when we add them to the food, we exponentially overeat. Now, that if you're trying to lose weight, that's not a good thing to be putting chemicals in your food to make you overeat. And salt especially is a powerful appetite stimulant. I learned this at Truenorth many years ago when Dr. Goldhamer had the holiday program last longer than it does now, which is 10 days. And by the way, he has a fabulous holiday cooking extravaganza for the last 10 days of every year where I'm a guest chef and lecturer. It's super fun. He allows us to have dessert twice and have fun and play games. And he's been doing this since 2011. I think we had our 8th year. We do Iron Chefs. It's like the funnest thing you could ever do it in the holidays. So I was there for 5 weeks, and there is no sugar, oil, salt, or flour, alcohol, or chocolate, or caffeine at Truenorth. And so I was there for 5 weeks. That's 33 days, actually. So that was 99 meals. And one of the meals I ate at a McDougall-approved restaurant called Gary Chu's because the Wheats, the owner of Millennium Restaurant, wanted to take me out. And so we ate there instead of eating at Truenorth. And there was no oil in the food and probably no sugar, but there was salt. And I could not believe after having gone, like 4 weeks without, because now I'm perfect with the salt. That was the hardest thing for me too. I don't want to say cheating because I don't think of it that way, but I was getting lazy even though I'm a chef and I can make my own mustard and ketchup and barbecue sauce and salsa. For convenience, I was buying condiments with little sodium and things like that. But here I was 4 weeks without one speck of salt, and I could just I could feel immediately how voracious I was, just having that little bit in the food. And then the problem with it is that there's like a yin-yang effect. And then once I had the salt, then I was craving sweet the rest of the day. So I learned this from Dr. Goldhamer, the sugar, oil, salt, and I would add flour and alcohol. They're not foods. They're chemicals we add to the food that fool our brain satiety mechanisms, which means that we don't feel full, and therefore we overeat. And so if you are somebody that's a food addict that's struggling to lose weight, you get rid of these chemicals, and guess what happens? You lose weight. Problem is if you're eating processed food, whether it's vegan or not, you're not going to be able to find food without sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, or salt. All right. Number 3 thing that I learned from Dr. Alan Goldhamer is that when you eat healthfully, healthy food actually tastes good. He sometimes jokes and says, Truenorth, where we make good food, tastes not bad. And he cites a story about one of the union workers, a burly guy that came there and thought the food was tasted swill and couldn't even eat it and was like choking. And then after the fast, he ate the food and liked it. And he said, well, your damn chef finally got the hang of it. Well, the chef didn't change, but his perception as to what tasted good changed. And a lot of people say, well, they think that they go there to fast to lose weight. You don't fast to lose weight. That is not a reason to fast somebody. And I would say that because many of you guys that are in ultimate weight loss have a strong history of bulimia and binge eating disorder and are currently active bingers, I would not recommend fasting for you guys at all. However, for people that don't suffer from that, the cool thing about fasting, yes, of course you will lose weight. You gain about half of it back after the fast because a lot of it's water and glycogen, is that you have the ability for food to start tasting good. That's called neuroadaptation or neurological adaptation. If you don't know what that is, think about some time where you went to a movie theater and you got there late and it was completely dark and you couldn't find a seat until you stood still for a few moments, and then the light from the screen, your eyes adjusted, you could find the seat. Well, the same thing happens with your taste buds, with your brain chemistry. And when you stop literally assaulting your taste buds with so much sugar, oil, and salt.
I like that, assaulting them.
Yeah, assaulting, assaulting. You have the ability to taste food. So you can taste the notes of subtle vanilla notes in romaine lettuce. You can taste how salty things like celery and chard are. And so the reason people don't like healthy food is because they're eating unhealthy food. You know, somebody like Dr. Goldhamer's son, Gar, who was raised eating this way, who thinks Brussels sprouts are, his favorite food, or somebody like Mark Huberman, looks forward to having a salad for dinner. You crave what you eat. What you eat today, you will crave tomorrow. So if you eat crap today, if you drink coffee today or alcohol today, that is what you will crave tomorrow. So doing a medically supervised therapeutic water only fast, or if you're not able to fast like me, even a juice fast, because you've removed those potent chemicals like sugar, oil, salt from the food that fool your brain satiety mechanism and cause you to exponentially overeat, you can actually start tasting what food is supposed to taste like. And it's freaking delicious. I've heard even Dr. Furman say he doesn't eat this way because he has to. He's never been sick. He's never been overweight. He prefers this way of eating. And those of us that have eaten this way for a long time, we prefer it because it tastes way better. And it doesn't make us all crazy in the head having cravings. And so that all we think about from the minute we wake up, from the time we go to bed, is when are we going to eat again? Or when are we going to get our next fix of sugar or caffeine or things like that? So in order for this kind of food to taste good, you have to eat it. And the thing is you have to eat it without eating all that other stuff, because when you eat healthily, healthy food tastes good. And that's why you parents have such a hard time with your children, because you still allow them to have crap. And as long as crap is offered, as long as it's an option, they will never choose the healthy food. We're genetically hardwired to prefer the most concentrated source of calories for survival. And all eating stimulates the production of dopamine in the brain, but these high fat, high calorie foods stimulate it more. So basically, as Dr. Goldhamer says, we're addicted to the artificial stimulation of dopamine in the brain. But when you start eating these foods, yay, the other foods taste pretty damn good, but you have to give it time. And it can take about 30 days not eating salt for food to start tasting salty. It can take sometimes 90 to 120 days, depending on how poorly you've eaten, for a lower fat diet to taste good. And with sugar, you never lose your desire for sweet, but you can learn to satisfy with the fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the whole fruit. So help me God. If you're enjoying this broadcast, please consider sharing it now. And please consider subscribing to me on YouTube and on my website, which is eatunprocessed.com. Don't forget, we've got a live Ultimate Weight Loss Conference Labor Day weekend with Dr. Goldhamer, Dr. Lyle, Dr. Oliveira, and keynote speaker Dr. Barnard, and myself and John Pierre. And Sharon McRae is going to be giving a talk on how to transition families. So here's the thing. I never sit on the spin bike for 4 years. I do the whole class standing because I broke my knee, and the orthopedic doctor said you can sit, you can stand, but don't do both. So now my butt really hurts. I know what you're talking about, Nikki. Okay, so the fourth thing I learned from Dr. Alan Goldhamer, and this is in his wonderful book, The Pleasure Trap, that he co-wrote with my other favorite person, Dr. Doug Lyle, which is if you feed a rat bread and chocolate, in 60 days, they gain 49% of their weight. And when Dr. Goldhamer lectures on the pleasure trap, he, in his wonderful sarcastic tone, says, it's not because mommy rat didn't love them or daddy rat loved them too much. So what he's saying is, and by the way, I am not belittling anybody's stress or drama or trauma. If you read my book Unprocessed, you know that I didn't grow up like in some idyllic Disney fantasy world. I had a pretty hard traumatic childhood, and that book was the PG version of what really happened to me. I tell a little bit more of the horrific upbringing I had in The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, but a lot of it I didn't put in because it's just, that's not what the book was not about me and how bad my life was. I put the story in so you would understand that if you had similar or worse experiences, I understand how it can prime the pump and maybe make you more vulnerable to developing these addictions. But that's not the reason you're overweight. That's not the reason you eat. It's like Dr. McDougall's been saying for 40 years. It's the food.
Can you say that a little louder?
It's the food.
Okay.
Dr. Lyle often says that if all of those people out there, Kenny, that say, oh, well, I'm an emotional eater and I have stress and this happened and that happened and this happened in my childhood, you know. If we dropped you, Dr. Lyle says, if we put you in a prison in Cuba and all they fed you was rice and beans, despite any emotional problems you had or stress you're having now, you get thin. And something magical happens in that vortex known as Santa Rosa. All these people, myself included, with a history of abuse and trauma and PTSD and all kinds of stuff. Look, I'm as fucked up as everybody. I got panic disorder, agoraphobia, PTSD, OTSD. Sorry, maybe we can edit that out. I'm sorry, I swore. I know people have written me saying not to, but when I'm passionate, it sometimes happens. But you go to Truenorth, and when you eat the diet that's consistent with your species' natural history, human food, you get thin, you get healthy. So that's one of the things I learned from Dr. Lyle. Now, that's not to say if you have emotional issues, you shouldn't deal with them. We have a wonderful guy right here, Dr. Doug Lyle, who at esteemdynamics.com will give you a session for only $75 for 30 minutes to help you deal with your stuff. I've been seeing him for 7 years. I talk to him almost every week. It's great. He's on my automatic PayPal. You can pay by PayPal and pick your time on his website. He also has a podcast every Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Pacific time for an hour called Beat Your Genes, available on iTunes and Blog Talk Radio. You can even, if you can't afford $75, you can call in for free and ask him a question. So I think people should deal with their emotional stuff. But to say that that's the reason you're overweight or obese or struggling now, it's not. It's the food. And usually it's your environment because that's where most of the food is. All right. The fifth thing I learned from Dr. Helen Goldhamer is that females are energy-conserving, estrogen-producing fat storage machines. He says that lovingly, but really it was his wife that helped me understand. When I went to Truenorth as a patient in 2011, Dr. Morano she's a wonderful lecturer, and she gave a wonderful lecture. And many of us that are newer to the plant-based world think that you can eat anything you want. And that is true to some extent. If you understand calorie density, and you've heard my lecture, The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, if you do eat exclusively to the left of the red line without adding the high-fat plant foods and the chemicals like sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, salt, you can eat ad libitum. You cannot gain weight at a calorie density to the left of the red line. There are some people that are such emotional eaters and bingers that maybe they don't lose the mass amounts of weights that most of us do, but you can't gain weight eating to the left of the red line. But the problem is, in many of these other plant-based programs that include salt, which stimulates the appetite and causes you to overeat, and allows flour and flour products, which are of a caloric density at least triple that of the whole grains, you can't eat whatever you want. And Dr. Morano was saying, as a female, she couldn't. Because, and not that she's overweight or anything, she's a very petite woman, but I remember thinking that, what's wrong with me? I can never be thin like Mary McDougall. I'm not as thin as her now, but I'm, I'm thinner than I was. But the point is a lot of us have this notion that as long as it's vegan, we can eat whatever we want. And that's not true. And Dr. Morano was saying she can't just pound down the avocados that Mark Huberman on today's interview said he could do. Men are different. They don't store fat the way women do, which is a biological necessity because our ancestors suffered famine. And if the woman couldn't store fat and she was pregnant, the fetus would die. And if you want to understand more about the genetic differences between men and women and how much fat they can eat and be fat, listen to the 2 interviews I did with Dr. Oliviero, the geneticist. Also, somebody that has been overweight is genetically different, she said. But the point is it's harder when you're a gal. The same diet that's going to cause your husband, if you guys start on the same time eating a health-promoting diet, the same diet that lets your husband lose 3 to 4 pounds a week, you'll lose 1 to 2 or maybe even less. So you just have to accept that that's the way it is. Us females have to work twice as hard for half the results, and that's how it is in life. We have to work twice as hard, usually for half as much pay. So fifth thing I learned for Dr. Goldhamer is that us gals are energy conservation, estrogen-producing fat storage machines. Sorry, I got to stand up every now and then. All right, share this broadcast if you like it, guys. And don't forget, sign up for my webinar if you want to learn how to make the world's greatest cinnamon bun and barbecue sauce. All right, the 6th thing I learned from Dr. Alan Goldhamer, my mentor, is that Just because something is less bad doesn't mean it's good. You know, people argue that their addiction is less severe because it's a different form. So in other words, you know, they'll come to the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, which is an abstinence-based program, a concept I learned from Dr. Goldhamer based on the abstinence of sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, salt, and of course, animal products, and ideally caffeine and chocolate too. But, you know, sometimes if somebody's still drinking coffee, you know, that's something that can take a little bit of time to get them off of. Anyway, and so they go, oh, but it's coconut sugar, it's agave, it's xylitol, erythritol, stevia, all this kind of stuff. And, you know, we could argue that molasses is probably better than high fructose corn syrup, you know. There's some trace minerals. But as Dr. Goldhamer says, this is actually hot tea. I don't know if I want to drink this, but thanks, Kenny.
Oh, no.
So just because something is less bad doesn't mean it's good. And so where I lost my train of thought. So people do that all the time, you know, like, oh, but it's, you know, but it's spelt flour and it's pasta made out of spelt flour. Well, you know, sugar is sugar, oil is oil, salt is salt. You know, they're all bad. They're not health promoting. And so, yes, some may be less damaging, but why have any of it? You know, people go, oh, but what about Himalayan sea salt or Celtic sea salt? It's still salt. And so people in general, and addicts in particular, will argue to keep their addictions based on some marginal data. Like, for instance, oh, well, red wine is good because, you know, of the, I can't ever say that, the resveratrol or whatever.
Resveratrol.
Thank you. I can't, certain words I can't say, like citizenship. Oh, I just said it. And so, yeah, that's true, that there may be some marginal benefits in that compounded red wine, but if it was in the wine, it was in the grape. If there was anything good in olive oil, it would be in the olive. It would be better in the olive because you'd have the whole food package, the water and fiber and vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals and antioxidants and micronutrients. So it's the same thing. Well, you know, if it's not found in nature from a plant in the whole food plant form with its fiber and water intact, you probably shouldn't be eating it. And so a lot of people will, you know, argue that, oh, well, stevia is natural. Yeah, it's natural when it's a plant. But how many of you out there that are addicted to stevia in the form of sodas in desserts are actually eating the green leaf? No, you're taking it and you're processing it into a liquid and powder, which that sweet sensation never exists in nature. You would never get it naturally. And again, fooling the brain satiety mechanisms. You know, the artificial sweeteners, you could argue, are actually worse than sugar, if that's possible, at least where food addiction and weight loss is concerned. All the studies show that people that drink diet sodas have a harder time and are generally fatter than people drink regular soda, because that taste sensation, that sickeningly sweet artificial taste sensation that is so many times higher than even sugar, your brain thinks it's going to get some calories and it never does. So it actually tricks your brain and makes you hungrier, and it actually causes you to crave more sweet. So it actually perpetuates the desire for more sweet. So I guess we could argue in a brittle diabetic, is it better that they put stevia in their oatmeal than, you know, high fructose corn syrup? But don't put either. Eat the food, eat the fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the whole fruit. So help you God. So the sixth thing I learned from Dr. Goldhamer is just because something is less bad doesn't mean it's good. Doesn't mean it's health promoting. It just means it's a little bit less bad. But less bad isn't good. The seventh thing I learned from Dr. Alan Goldhamer is the notion of abstinence. And the Truenorth dietary style, which is exactly the same as the dietary style we teach on the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, is an abstinence-based program. It's based on the abstinence of all animal products, meat, fish, fowl, eggs, dairy products, and all chemicals like sugar, oil, salt, and then I added flour and alcohol because a lot of people didn't know that they weren't supposed to have those either. And of course, I would put caffeine in there too, but I don't make that a prerequisite for, actually, I don't make anything a prerequisite for joining the program because people come smoking and drinking and using vaping, marijuana, things like that. I'm just teaching what is optimal, what I learned from Dr. Goldhamer, the diet he's followed since he was, I believe, 15 or 16 years old. And look how young he looks. Good boy, Dr. Goldhamer. So he taught me about the concept of abstinence, and he has a classification system that he uses at Truenorth called URN, U-R-N. The U stands for unrestricted, the R stands for restricted, and the N stands for never. And Dr. Goldhamer and I agree on this completely. There's nothing I think I disagree with him on. And the idea of certain foods we should never have. For example, alcohol. For example, animal products, oils, processed food, things like that. If you're familiar with my calorie density magnet, these would be all the foods that appear in red: the flour, the sugar, the oil, and the dairy, and all the animal products. Kenny's going to get the magnets. So there's the concept of there's just foods we should never have. And you know what? As St. Augustine said, complete abstinence is easier than perfect moderation. Kenny's showing the magnet now, which is very similar to Dr. Goldhamer's urn, except that instead of using URN, I use red, green, and purple. Wow. Red meaning the never foods, green meaning the unrestricted or unlimited food, and purple meaning the restricted food. I guess I could have done yellow and made it more like a stoplight, but meaning caution. But there are some people, like we learned today, Mark Huberman, that can have unrestricted amount of nuts and avocados, and it doesn't seem to impact him. So the unrestricted foods, or the green foods in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, are all the foods to the left of the red line, the whole natural foods, the fruits, the vegetables, the whole grains and legumes, foods of a caloric density of 600 calories per pound or less. And then the restricted foods, are the higher fat plant foods that some people can have in moderation. Some people apparently can have a lot of them. They're usually male and have never been overweight. The nuts, the seeds, the nut butters, the avocados. People that are food addicts that have trouble moderating their use of these luscious high-fat foods. They're often trigger foods. Sometimes the restricted food has to become a never food for you. And you know what? The more you draw these lines in the sand, the easier it is. Because I'm telling you, the only bite that you have the power to refuse as a food addict or somebody dieting is the first bite. And so it's so much easier to never do something than to do it occasionally, especially if you're an addict. And that is the truth. Willpower is only required when you have to make a decision. And if you've decided, like an Orthodox Jew, to never eat pork, or an ethical vegan to never eat animals, and if you've decided not to eat sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, or salt, there's no willpower required not to eat these things because you don't eat them. So I learned from Dr. Goldhamer the seventh thing, the concept of abstinence and how it works in your life, and the concept of having categories of food. In his case, unrestricted, restricted, and never. JP's and in my case, hi, JP. Thank you, JP. He'll be back next week, hopefully. And in my case, we call them left of the red line, right of the red line. Left of the red line is unrestricted. Right of the red line, in the red, they're never. If they're purple, they're restricted. But again, depending on how severe your food addiction is, how vulnerable you are, sometimes those restricted foods have to become a never food. And even for some people that are so severe food addicts, there's some unrestricted foods that may have to become restricted or never foods. There are people here that have a real problem with grains. It doesn't seem to happen with the winter squashes and the sweet potatoes or even the potatoes or even the legumes, but something with grains where people just can't moderate the use of them, especially rice. And I get it, because when I see white rice, I'm like, oh, that's like, I just want to eat it. So the seventh thing I learned from my mentor, Dr. Ellen Goldhamer, is the notion of abstinence and classifying food as unrestricted, restricted, or never. Thank you, Dr. Goldhamer, for being here today. You look so much bigger than me. The eighth thing I learned from Dr. Ellen Goldhamer is that moderation almost never works. And it never, ever works for an addict. You know, we have 3/4 of our population that's overweight. Something like more than 40% of them are obese now. And if moderation worked, wouldn't you have been able to do it already? If you truly were able to be moderate in the use of whatever it is that's causing you to be fat and sick, whether it's sugar or flour or alcohol or dairy or even the high-fat plant foods, if you were able to be moderate with these foods, wouldn't you have done it already? You know? So moderation is a myth. I believe Dr. Esselstyn has said that in his talk. It almost never works, and it never, ever, ever has worked for somebody that's an addict. How many of you know somebody that was an alcoholic or maybe a drug addict? Does it work when they get out of rehab if they just change the type of alcohol they're drinking? Maybe instead of drinking vodka, If they switch to light beer, well, that's moderation. Or if they just have, a little shot glass every day instead of however much they were drinking, well, that's moderation. And you know what? There are people that can drink moderately and not be alcoholics. But if you're an alcoholic, it's not you. And there are people that can eat sugar and oil and flour and salt and even animal products and not be overweight or food addicted. But if you are overweight or suffer with food addictions, then it's not you. So the 8th thing I learned from Dr. Alan Goldhamer is that moderation never works. If you could have controlled it, he says, you would have controlled it, but you can't. So don't do it. All right. Keep sharing, guys. I really appreciate it. The 9th thing I learned from Dr. Goldhamer, and he says he never said this, but I actually could probably prove it to him because it's on a recorded call he did for my group, is that carob is a gateway drug to the use of chocolate. Now, I'm not here to bash carob. It's a fruit. It comes in a pod, and if you eat it raw, it may be okay, but most people have to roast it and put a lot of sugar and fat in to make it taste good. But the idea of a gateway drug, the 9th thing I learned from Dr. Goldhamer, is that there are certain foods, especially for those of us that suffer from food addiction, refined food addiction, that cause us to overeat other foods. And these are gateway foods. And a lot of times, depending where you are in your journey to optimal health and weight loss, foods that maybe weren't a problem for you at the beginning can often become a problem for you. So the way this statement from Dr. Goldhamer came about is somebody asked him, would it be okay if they had an occasional rich date nut dessert? And, made with like cocoa powder or cacao powder. Now, at Truenorth at the holidays, we do have a rich date nut dessert without any chocolate products twice a year, Christmas Day for dinner, after dinner, and New Year's. And I make them. He lets me make the pecan pie that's very rich, just pecans and dates, no chocolate. So he was asked, is it okay if the person said, if I could occasionally have a rich date nut dessert, like made with like raw cacao powder? And he said, so he asked the person, because this was on a call, he couldn't see me, he says, are you overweight? And the person says, yes. And he says, well, then no. And the person then said, well, what if I make it with carob powder? And that's when he said carob is a gateway drug to the use of chocolate. So the thing is there are certain foods that will cause us to eat other foods. A lot of this has to do with things that are called cues that we've learned. I've talked about this in previous episodes about how the environment is the #1 predictor of your success on any lifestyle change or modification or weight loss program. That if it's in your house, it's in your mouth, and it's not a question of if you will eat it, but when. And even with other addictions, just having cues can make you want to do the addiction. So for example, when I took a college course on the addicted brain, one of the things the professor was saying, how when people are quitting smoking, I mean, if you live with a smoker, you ain't going to be able to quit. It's never going to happen. I can tell you the story about my aunt and uncle. He started smoking when he was a medical student in Paris, fell in love with a Swiss girl and married her. And she smoked, as most people did around World War II. It was very common to smoke, and the ill health effects weren't as well known in the 40s. There was no label on the cigarettes saying that. And so then what happened is he went to medical school and, of course, learned that it wasn't good to smoke. He quit smoking. And, their entire over 50-year marriage was just fighting about the smoking, and she had to smoke outside. And it was just, at one point he just, he couldn't take it anymore. He ended up starting smoking again. So the thing is if you're trying to quit smoking, you don't want to have anything in your environment that reminds you of smoking. So for example, I know that sometimes when people go to, cities, visit cities, they'll often buy like souvenirs. Like I was just in, where was I that had a lot of souvenirs? Oh, we were just at Universal Studios. And sometimes they'll have like decorative ashtrays that say Las Vegas or New Orleans, and people will buy these because even people that don't smoke, sometimes when men especially, they don't have purses, they have change in their pocket and they'll put them in the ashtray. Just seeing an ashtray without cigarettes in it will cause a smoker to crave nicotine, or seeing some matches that might be used to light the pilot or a candle. So it's the same thing with food. And certain foods can be a gateway to the use of the other foods. So I know for me, salt is a gateway to the use of sugar because it causes me to crave sugar because of the yin-yang effect. And so you have to be careful that even if a food seems like it may be benign, and maybe it's an unrestricted food for you or restricted food, it can often still be a gateway. I know that I used to be able to eat date nut desserts all the time and not have a problem overeating them. But now, because I've been eating clean for so long, I can't even eat dates anymore. And I mean, I can, but the point is when I eat dates, all it does. Hey, Kenny, do you know how to turn the air on?
Yeah, we'll get on.
I am so hot. I've never done this before. All it causes me to just want to eat more rich desserts and more things with dates. So, you start thinking about, well, what other things can I have? So even though he denies saying carob is a gateway drug to the use of chocolate, the idea that certain things that we eat or drink, that we imbibe or ingest, can cause us to have cravings for other things, that's a real thing. And it's funny because when people ask Dr. Goldhamer, well, how much alcohol can I drink? How much salmon or chocolate can I eat? His answer is always, how fat and sick do you want to be? And then Dr. Lyle says, be nice, Alan, right? So we should do something with these in Vegas where we have like people hold up like who said it. All right. Okay, so the 10th and maybe the most important thing, at least in terms of weight loss, that I learned from Dr. Alan Goldhamer, is this. I've often heard him say, show me a fat person, and I will show you someone who is unwilling to eat enough raw salads and steamed vegetables. And boy, is that true. And, people that bash the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, it's funny because when people write reviews about my program and bash it, they're never in the program. They've never sent away from the program, or you don't send away anymore. We used to mail it, but I mean, it's all downloads now, but they don't even know what the program is. I've heard this blogger say, oh, she forces you to eat a pound of kale for breakfast and drink the water. So they don't really understand the efficacy of the vegetables and why we eat them at every meal, specifically as the first meal of the day. It's not all we eat. But whether Dr. Goldhamer knew this or not, the study done at Tufts showed that the more fruits and vegetables you eat, especially vegetables, the lower the body weight and BMI. There's an inverse relationship between how much produce somebody eats and how much they weigh and what their BMI is. And, people that say, oh, well, I can't eat starch, I overeat. You don't overeat on starch. And even if you did, you wouldn't get fat unless you were putting sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, or salt, or caffeine, or chocolate on it, because de novo lipogenesis, you can't convert protein and carbohydrates to fat, Pigs can do it, but 3% of the calories in the dietary fat is all it takes to be stored as body fat. You don't overeat on starch. You undereat on vegetables, and that's a problem. We still want to eat a lot of starch. Ultimate weight loss is at least 75% of your calories from unrefined complex carbohydrates without sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, salt. But we want the volume of your food to come from vegetables. And people say, and unless you've had gastric bypass, that's a whole other story. You can't eat these large volumes of food, at least not in one sitting like most of us can. But people say, well, I'm not a volume eater. And when people tell me they're not a volume eater, what they're saying is I refuse to eat the salad and vegetables that are required for me to be slim, because that's where the volume comes from. Dr. Goldhamer says the reason somebody is overweight is because they don't fill themselves up on the high nutrient, calorie dilute foods, which are fruits and vegetables. And if you ever go to Truenorth, you'll know that their dinner plates there are 11 inches instead of the usual 8 inches that we have at home. And the idea is because that encourages you to take large volumes of the salad, of the vegetables, and preferably in sequential order. I mean, I've already done the top 10, but another concept, and this actually comes into what he just said, or what I just said that he said about how people that are overweight are basically unwilling to eat enough raw salad and steamed vegetables. The order you eat it in is also important, because if you sequence your meals the way they teach you to do at Truenorth, when you walk into the dining room, the buffet is set up in order of increasing calorie density. Well, now they have 2 rows, so you could argue that maybe it's not perfectly that way anymore. But the idea in the McDougall program too, the buffet is set up in increasing caloric density. If you eat a huge raw salad, and Dr. Goldhamer says if it's not enough to feed a family of 8, you're probably not eating enough. If you eat a huge raw salad and then eat a huge serving of cooked vegetables like greens, you will be, what are you looking at me for?
Just seeing how much you're glowing.
I'm not wearing any makeup today. I know I've got these people out there. When I wear makeup, you look beautiful. When I don't wear makeup, you look beautiful, meaning there are people that like me with and without. I prefer me with, but I'm going commando for you. Well, I'm always commando because I don't wear underwear, but I'm going without makeup.
Thanks for sharing.
This is a spin glow. I'm at 55 minutes. Oh, I can't wait till this is over today. You got to show them the pizza I made you.
Okay, I'll go get that.
Yeah, and so
I have a couple questions here for you.
Yeah, we'll get to it. I'm almost done. So the idea is if you really eat and sequence your meals, then by the time you're done with the cooked vegetables, or it could be a soup made out of non-starchy vegetables, you've started activating your stretch receptors. You're starting to be full, and your nutrient receptors. That you can still eat a reasonable portion of potatoes, rice, beans, but you're not going to overeat on it. And so when people say I overeat on starch, that doesn't happen unless they have undereaten on salad and steamed vegetables and they didn't sequence their meal. So the other thing I learned from Dr. Goldhamer too is the timing of meals can make a difference. So again, now I'm up to probably 12, but we'll keep it to the top 10 as soon as I show you the pizza I made Kenny. This is a barbecue chickenless pizza. And if you sign up for my oh my God, it smells so good. If you sign up on my webinar on Sunday, we're going to teach you how to make the most important component, which is the sauce. And
yes, there is a piece missing.
Well, Eden, if you're watching this, I have to leave at 6 o'clock tonight. I have a class now on Wednesdays. I forgot to tell you and Eden, but my Thursday class was switched to Wednesday nights. So, the idea of intermittent fasting, where Dr. Goldhamer calls it intermittent feeding, where you're basically just skipping breakfast or you're skipping dinner, you're narrowing the feeding window. So anyway, I'm going to stop now. I want to thank Dr. Alan Goldhamer for everything he's done, along with Dr. Lyle and Dr. McDougall, to make me the skinny bitch that I am today. Always was the bitch, but
thank you so
not
much.
always a skinny bitch. And I'm going on 6 years now of recovery.
Thank you too.
January 2nd, 2012 was my recovery date. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please consider sharing it, and please consider subscribing to Chef AJ on YouTube, coming to the live conference, and going to my website, UNPROCESSED.com, and signing up to be on my mailing list. And that's where you submit questions. So next week we'll be back with JP and questions, and I'm going to answer a few questions now. Okay, we got one question says, and we know the answer. Yeah. Where can I find out how to fast correctly? Well, that's Truenorth. Is that right? Yeah, so Dr. Alan Goldhamer, free consult. If you fill out the patient intake questionnaire at healthpromoting.com. There's also a wonderful book by Herbert Shelton called Fasting Can Save Your Life, and one by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. I think it's called Eat Fasting and Eating for Health. But those are the two books that I am aware of. And plus, if you go to the Truenorth website, fasting.org, lots of wonderful free material articles like the one on intermittent fasting written by the extraordinary Dr. Morano. Okay, someone else asked a question, says, can someone eat too much rice or too much potatoes? Yeah, but not if they've eaten the way we suggest first. Not if you've eaten a 1 pound salad and 1 pound of greens. It's pretty hard to. But I find more people struggle with the grains, especially women, even though they're very healthy. There's something like an opiate effect in grains. I know that I will grossly overeat on rice and millet more so than on potatoes, sweet potatoes, winter squashes. Someone early on says, what vegan makeup face lotion do you recommend? Please tune in on Wednesday, March 7th at noon, when I will be interviewing for the second time, but this time live, Caitlin Harwell, formerly of the Canyon Ranch. She creates wonderful vegan skincare. And that's what we're going to be showing. It's all food grade material. You could eat it. So it's called Caitlin Harwell, KAELENHARWELL.com. But if you wait till Wednesday, I will provide you with a generous discount code. Her soft as a peach cream is unparalleled. Fantastic. Now, someone else asks, what kind, or do you recommend your Kaiser, K-E-I-S-E-R? Yeah, well, yes. So I've been spinning for 4 years. I'm a person that was inactive for the first 51 years of my life, never exercised, broke my knee at 50, and I used that as the excuse. And I was running the Ultimate Weight Loss Program with John Pierre, telling people they had to eat a pound of vegetables for breakfast. And they would say, well, I don't like vegetables. And I said, well, you're an adult. You don't have to like it. You just have to do it. And then when he told me I needed to start exercising, I said, but I don't like exercise. And he said, you know how ridiculous you sound? That's what you tell the people in your program about vegetables. So what I did is I chose the exercise that I hated the least, which is spinning. I heard that, just a 1 hour class, you could burn from 400 to 600 calories. And when I broke my knee very badly in February of 2010, and it required surgery, which I refused to have, which was the impetus for my weight loss, my orthopedic doctor said that realistically, with the derangement that my knee had without surgery, the only exercises I could do safely are walking, swimming, and biking. But he said, I can't go up and down. I got to either stay up or go down. And I really liked spinning. I went to the gym for 4 years. I just got this bike next week because my first gym had the spin bike with the round red thing. Didn't like it. Couldn't tell what I was doing. I like this one because it's got the numbers, the calories, the heart thing. And I love it. And it's gently used. Thanks to Dr. Doug Lyle's advice, I didn't buy a new one. And one of the things I do is the only time I allow myself to watch television, with the exception of Jeopardy, which I'm doing for my brain, is if I'm on the spin bike. And so I've gotten into some amazing shows on Amazon Prime, like the marvelous Mrs. Maisel and Grace and Frankie. And so now I look forward to waking up and getting on the bike because it's the only way I'm allowed to watch TV, because I read several articles that showed that the more television a person watches, the fatter they are. So yes, I do like the Kaiser bike. And if you want to know where to get one inexpensively, email me.
And I got one question just for myself. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Do you want to do the bike next week as well?
No. I'm at 61 minutes now, so I'm going to sign off. That was 60. Wait, let me just see how many calories I burned, because only 200. Usually on a spin, I'm burning 500, but remember, I kept I was going pretty slow, and I kept it at the same intensity. So thanks for loving this headband. I got a few of them made. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 65 of Weight Loss Wednesday. If you have questions, please go to www.eatunprocessed.com and submit them. And don't forget to tune in when I interview Dr. Goldhamer live on March 14th at 11 a.m. And thank you, Dr. Goldhamer, for all you've done to me. Not that all you've done to me.
Whoa!
All you've done for me. And also to Dr. Lyle and Dr. McDougall. I don't have a bobblehead of Dr. McDougall, but I have an apron of him. And I'm not sure he'd think that's funny. So again, thank you, Kenny, for your help. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. I love when you share these broadcasts. And I truly believe you can have both the health and the body you so richly deserve.
And that's a wrap for 65.
Take care. Bye, guys. Now I got to stretch. Yeah, it takes a while sometimes. You got to keep clicking there. Click on broadcast there. All righty. Whew, that was difficult.